one of our favorite topics, regulation, is as always back in the news. So we're going to
Really
start
big
there.
this
We're going to
week.
talk about,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of, so then there's some industry news that we'll talk about that kind of dives into the weeds of things. And then a conversation I think that was based on a New York Times article at the very beginning of all this, had sort of coming home to roost, that I think actually has a lot of implications for any of us that use this technology and any of us in enterprise IT. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. But let's start with regulation. The, this has been an ongoing source of debate, I think, between you and I
Mhm.
about, is this good? I'm certainly sort of I won't say I'm anti-regulation, but I'm very skeptical about the ability of our organizations, of our governmental organizations and our regulatory bodies to do this effectively. And apparently, I'm not alone. So there's a Wall Street Journal article that is talking about AI regulation. The title is AI regulation is coming. Fortune 500 companies are bracing for impact. And it talked about that 27% of the Fortune 500 identified AI regs as a risk in their annual reports. And what is interesting about that is I don't know what the numbers are. It's possible that 27% of the Fortune 500 are tech companies, and so they're the ones that are worried about it. But my read on this
Mhm.
was that this is becoming a bigger issue for organizations of all stripes. And the big takeaway in this particular piece wasn't so much about the regulations themselves as much as it was, particularly in the US, the hodgepodge nature of them and the uncertainty that they're creating, that nobody really knows what's going to happen with them, how onerous they're going to be, what the teeth are going to be, if there's teeth, how universally they're going to be applied. Will this affect multiple markets, i.e., do I have to somehow treat my AI tool differently in California than I do in some other state? And so I think it's coming to roost, and I think I think we talked about this last week about California's regulation, and so
Right.
I think that there's a lot of pretty significant concerns around this that are bubbling up into the Fortune 500, and I presume down market as well. So, I mean, what was your take on this? Did this article change your opinion at all?
Um, I think if anything, it understates the challenges that AI brings because the governance and regulatory aspects that are coming into AI right now, based on the EU, California, and whoever else might come into play, is going to be really, really difficult to enforce from a practical perspective. I honestly think that this is going to affect the biggest tech companies the most. Everybody always wants to go after Google, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, and all the big pockets that they've got. But I also think that as a result, we're going to have a hard time trying to figure out, even if any of this is enforceable at the end of the day. I think that governments are going to be very excited about putting regulation into place, and then it's going to add a whole lot of paperwork, a whole lot of things for the lawyers to do. But at the end of the day, I'm still not sure how to enforce a lot of these rules that I'm seeing from a legislative perspective, and I think that's going to be it's going to be very messy. That was my quick takeaway, but I also think it's going to be a lot more than 20 some percent who end up saying that AI is going to be a regulatory issue. I think it's definitely going to be 70-80% of companies that end up being worried about this and having to at least spend a lot of time and money to clean up their AI.